Welcome to Delicious Destinations, Egypt Beyond the Monuments. I'm Amy Riolo, author of Nile Style, Egyptian Cuisine and Culture. And I'm here at the Hilton Luxor Resort and Spa in one of the most beautiful and incredible destinations on earth. And I'm going to be working today with Chef Shankar, Chef Bedoui, and Chef Ahmed. And we're going to make a delicious and traditional dish called fatir. Before I get started, let me tell you a little bit more about this incredible destination of Luxor. The word Luxor actually comes from the Arabic term al-Uqsor, which means the palaces. And the reason that Luxor has this wonderful name is because when the Arabs came here in the 7th century, they were inspired by all of the beautiful temples that they found. You can imagine arriving in this ancient city with Luxor Temple, Karnak, the Valley of the Kings, the Valley of the Queens, and many other temples that were already here at the time. They were so impressed that they named this area the Palaces, and Luxor became synonymous with luxury, which is why they begin with many of the same letters. So we're going to delve into the history and discover the food of this culture and why it became so important. A lot of people don't realize that many of our ancient cultures were based upon food, and the reason why they had the wealth that they did was because they had wonderful food that they could trade and make money and support all of their development projects with. Here in Luxor, we're very fortunate to have the Nile. The Nile used to flood twice a year, which provided natural irrigation for all sorts of crops. Egypt, for example, was the chief exporter of wheat and of lentils during antiquity, and it's that way that they became very wealthy. We've been baking on a commercial basis in Luxor since 3200 BC, and they had very sophisticated bakeries in the Old Kingdom, which is about 27 or 2600 BC. And one of the recipes which we're going to make is also dating back to this period. So let's get started. First, I would like to introduce you to Chef Shankar, who is the executive chef here at the Hilton Resort and Spa. Welcome, Chef Shankar.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you. It's great to be with you here today. I'm really impressed by the Hilton, and I've been so impressed by your hospitality and by your staff and the wonderful food that I'm eating. And what I really appreciate about your location and your kitchen specifically is that you've gone to great lengths to adapt the Egyptian culture and to make sure that any visitor who comes here to Egypt, even if it's for one meal, that they're able to taste the true Egyptian culture. So tell me a little bit about how you achieved that.
Our main aim is to make sure that the guests experience Egypt the way Egyptians want foreigners to experience it. And that's why when we come to a destination like Luxor, we want to make sure that we offer the best of the local produce and the best of the local culture. I think the few dishes that we're going to cook, the first dish that we're going to do today is fatir, which is a very ancient recipe, which has been a secret, which is not known to the rest of the world. And this is what we offer at breakfast to make sure the guests who come here actually experience a wonderful dish, which is unique to this location. And we have with us Chef Bedoui, who's our pastry chef, and Chef Ahmed, who's our chief baker. Ahmed has been working with us for over 22 years, and he's been doing the fatir for guests who have been to this hotel for over 22 years. And you will see the delicacy involved in preparation of this simple dish. While many guests who come here do not understand the intricacy of the dish, and we want to popularize this dish simply because it brings in the antiquity that is involved in cooking, at the same time the delicacy and entertaining guests who come into our hotel. Our aim is to bring the guests into our house. Hilton is not a hotel, this is a residence for people who visit us, and that's how we view guests who come into our hotel. And the food that we cook at home is what we want to offer to our guests. Even though I am not Egyptian, I embrace the culture of Egypt and I love Egyptian food, and that's what Chef Bedoui and Ahmed are going to show us today.
Fatir is a homemade type of puff pastry, which actually in Egypt they sometimes call Egyptian pancakes, but it's nothing like our pancakes outside. You'll see how intricate this recipe is and how really sophisticated it is. And what Chef Bedoui was saying is all of the different types of flavors that it can be offered in. It can be plain, or it can be sweet or savory. And there are some restaurants which specialize just in fatir, and they make it with all different kinds of fillings, whatever is in season. It can be apple, it can be powdered sugar, it can be a different type of custard. It could also be savory, like a pizza with olives and with cheese and with many different things. Then you can serve it with toppings, which we'll show you a little bit later. And he's telling us how he prepares the fillings by making them and sauteing them on the stove. And then he starts by making the dough for the fatir, then rolling it out, filling it, and baking it. So let's go ahead and get started. And I'm going to turn it over to Chef Shankar, who's going to walk us through the process.
So first of all, Chef Badvi is going to start making the dough with Ahmed. First we have the flour. This is refined flour. It's about 5 grams of salt. Chef Badvi, this is 1 kg of flour, huh? 15 ml of oil. This is regular oil, corn oil. Half a liter of water. Now he mixes it into a light dough. As you see, he's starting to mix it from the sides into the center to make sure that the dough forms in an even fashion. Do not add all the water in one stage. You gradually add it to form a nice and smooth dough. As you can see, the dough has started forming in a very light fashion. Chef Ahmed has started to knead it to make sure there are no lumps. While Chef Ahmed is kneading the dough, we are going to have a look at the rest of the ingredients which is on display. We have the 2 spices, cinnamon powder and cardamom. Followed by that, we have here cream cheese flavored with parsley and some salt. We have dates which have been completely de-seeded and skinned. We have the raw dates which are prior to cleaning. Followed by that, we have butter, regular table butter. And we have some minced beef which has been cooked with some spices and some onions. We have also peeled apples. We have pistachio, roasted and chopped. And we have traditional clotted cream Egyptian style, which is called ishtar. This is very similar to Devonshire clotted cream, very rich in fat, and it's a healthy version of clotted cream. What we have here is called black honey in Egypt, and in the Western world it's called molasses. It's very strong in flavor and it's one of the classic ingredients in Egyptian cuisine. For that we have roasted cashew nuts, honey, and we have powdered sugar. These ingredients form the base for making fatir filling and for the topping. Let's return back to see how Chef Ahmed has finished the dough.
So he's making them into balls that are each about 200 grams. So now we can continue making more balls, and then we're just going to leave them to rest for about an hour, let them rise, let them start working together. We'll cover them, and then we'll come back and roll them out. Now we're just going to grease our surface, and then we start rolling out the dough. And this is the really tricky part, because so many places will show you the dough when it's already rolled out. But you can see how nice and soft and pliable this dough is. It's really, really beautiful. Now look how he slaps it on the surface. It's just kind of like when the pizzerias, they used to throw the dough up in the air to make it larger. Here they slap it onto the surface to make it easier to work and to stretch it out. It's nice and elastic, and this is what we need. It's almost like magic to watch and see how big this becomes.
It's very similar to strudel that's made in Austria, and it's very similar to dishes that's made in the rest of the Arab world. They call it paratha in Afghanistan, and in India it's called roti. So it's a different version of the same dish, and you can see that this originated more than 5,000 years ago in Egypt. So now we are going to use the cheese for the fatir. Followed by that we will use the date filling. So Chef Ahmed is now applying the oil onto the fatir dough. Followed by that he is adding the cheese. So what Chef Ahmed has done is he's made a filling with the cream cheese and chopped parsley, which he's applying all over the fatir.
Cheese was actually found in jars in some of the tombs here in Luxor from about 3200 BC. The same type of cheese, which we call in Arabic gebna beda or white cheese, they actually had it from 3200 BC. Sometimes in the West we use the term feta for this type of cheese now, and that's associated with Greece. But here in Egypt we had it for a long time. It's really wonderful, very creamy, as you can see, and soft. So it makes a perfect traditional filling for the fatir.
As you can see, Chef Ahmed is now folding the fatir with the cheese inside, and he's applying more of the oil, and he folds it into a pancake. So the fatir can be made into a round piece or into a square piece. Chef Ahmed has done it into a square, as it is delicate to handle it with cheese for this time. preset the oven to 160 degrees centigrade, and then we will bake the fatir in the oven.
This is a lot of years of experience. And you know, something in the patrimony of Middle Eastern cooking really denotes success by people who work on the same recipe for years and years and perfect it and become masters of it. This is actually going to be a savory fatir with ground meat. This ground meat has been browned on the stove, and they've added a little bit of onion to it and also some cumin and some other local spices like coriander and cilantro. So we roll it up into three like the other ones, but then we make it into a circle. It's almost like an ancient Egyptian beggar's purse.
The filling for the fatir is got milk, butter, and this is the best part of the fatir, as we can have plain or filled fatir. Chef Badwi is adding the dates, which have been peeled and de-seeded. They've not been chopped, they've been roughly cut into large chunks. And on top of this, we add a little bit of cinnamon powder, just a dash to give it some wonderful woody flavor. Followed by that, we are adding a little bit of cardamom powder, which is very popular in Egyptian cuisine. The intense flavor of cardamom offsets the rich texture of the dates. Followed by that, Chef Badwi is adding the chopped cashew nuts and pistachios. These nuts originated from the Persian Valley and have traveled all the way to Egyptian cuisine centuries ago. And as you can see that the dish is coming together. The idea is not to cook the dates to a soft stage, but just to combine all the ingredients so that the wonderful aroma of the cooked spices evolves, and this creates a great filling for the fatir. The filling is ready. This has to be rested for a short while to cool down prior to filling.
Fresh dates have a really soft, tender, sweet, kind of a fibrous texture. I like to describe them as a cross between a soft apple and a piece of celery. They taste great, and we're going to be using some of the local dates here, which Chef Shankar goes to great lengths also to source, and he includes them here in the local menu. And dates are such an important part of the cuisine in the Middle East. They make molasses out of them, they make sugar out of them, they make many other things. And here in Egypt, in the Western Desert, we actually have a date festival in the town of Siwa every year, and that's when the local community gets together and celebrates the date harvest. So we made this one nice and wide to encompass all of our delicious filling. It has dates that have been sauteed in butter with some cinnamon and some coriander and some mixed nuts. Dates are very, very beloved by Egyptians, so this is one of the most traditional kinds of fatir. So this is going to be a plain fatir or a multi-layered fatir, and it's really fun to see how they put all the different layers together. You can see it's so thin it starts to puff up right away, right where he's working. We're using oil today, but we could also use samna or clarified butter. You always want to fold it into three, and then give it another coating of butter or clarified butter. Fold it again into three. Turn it over on its side. Another layer of oil. So that one needs to rest for about 15 minutes, and then it will go into the oven. And now it's time for the much awaited plain fatir. It's been resting for 15 minutes, and now we're going to go ahead and roll it out again. This is what gives it that characteristic, really light, flaky, multi-layer technique. We know when the dough is ready to roll out again, when it just spreads out and when it's easy to work with. But if it comes back and it doesn't let you really work with it, you know you've got to let it rest a little bit longer. So now we're going to fold it into a circle. We just fold up the edges and then fold it together. You're going to see how nice and flaky this is when we cut it. We're going to let this rest for another 15 minutes. Here we have our meat-filled fatir. This is the savory one, and it's been resting for about 15 minutes. We're just pressing it down. Now it's ready to go straight into the oven. So not a whole lot of time with resting, which is nice.
You can see it's very light, and we also have apple fatir, which is really fantastic because the green apples have been very delicately cooked, and we have the date fatir as well. What we have here on the two platters here, we have the molasses, the dark honey, what Egyptians love in their dessert, followed by icing sugar. We also have ishta, which is the local clotted cream, a very nice cream which I fell in love with when I came to Egypt. And we also have regular honey, wild honey, and the two types of nuts that traditionally had with fajir.
Look at these beautiful different layers. This is absolutely amazing and just such a stunning project. And thank you so much, Chef Ahmed and Chef Ayman and Chef Bedoui, for all of your hard work in getting this done. It's a real treat for me to be able to eat this. So I'll try it with a little bit of the ishta, which is the Egyptian clotted cream. This is really, really good. This is savory food, and I hope that everyone will try with me at the same time. This is a simple food in Egypt. It's not considered to be elegant, but it's very, very sophisticated. In Egypt, instead of saying bon appetit, we say bilhana wa shefa, which means with pleasure and health. So, bilhana wa shefa.
So as you can see, this is really, I think, a signifying dish for Egyptian cuisine, and this is what we want to popularize.
Chef Shankar, please tell me a little bit about your role in bringing some signature Egyptian dishes into the Hilton. Tell me the challenges that you had. I know in a lot of, for example, big hotel chains, it's difficult to incorporate local dishes.
In Hilton Luxor, we specialize in popularizing the local dishes. There are quite a few challenges in Upper Egypt due to infrastructure or delivery point of raw ingredients, because it is not very popular outside private residences. So a simple ingredient like bran is not available in a commercial packing. So it is very challenging for a five-star hotel or a business to produce baladi bread. We do produce local specialties like ish, which is the local bread, and it is done by finding suppliers from private residences who can actually guarantee us quality that is up to an international standard. And unfortunately, food industry in Egypt is developed in certain parts, and it's not fully developed in many parts. And this poses a major challenge for chefs. Chef Bedoui and Chef Ayman are very keen on bringing the culture and the cuisine of Egypt to the rest of the world. So every time they find something that's special, they bring it to the hotel and say, "Chef, we've got to try this one. I think this will be appreciated by the guests." So this is what we like to offer to our clients, not a commercially popular dish, but a residential dish which is appreciated, home-cooked meal in a five-star hotel. So there are quite a few specialities, like koshery is a very commercially popular dish, which is also a homely dish. But you will see that we offer something called kebab al-mouli, which is made with a certain type of wheat grain, which is not available commercially. So it is with the talents of the team that we have, the battery of chefs that work in our hotel, plus a team of managers and employees who like to get unique products into the hotel for the dining pleasure of our guests.
I really would like to commend you and thank you all on your efforts, because they're truly bringing the Egyptian home experience and a true cultural experience here into the tables of the Hilton. I thank you for this opportunity, and I'd like to tell you that I'm in heaven right now. This is a complete dream come true, to be with these lovely people, eating my favorite food with this beautiful view of the Nile. I feel truly blessed. So thank you all, and I look forward to seeing you here in Luxor.